you should have more opportunities
Yeah.
to be able to tell your story and to help platform other people's stories, which is what you're so good at, right? And bringing people together. And so, I think we have so much to go even on this side of the politics to be like, how do we resource the artists to make sure that they can actually have a greater impact?
This is NILC's Freedom to Thrive podcast, where culture and power meet solidarity in action. And I'm your host, Hector Flores, artist, advocate, professional disruptor, and co-founder of Las Cafeteras. On today's show, we have a woman who makes people laugh so they'll listen. And when she has their attention, she makes sure they take action. Comedian and artist Jenny Yang joins us today alongside NILC Senior Strategist and Organizer Eliana Fernandez for conversation about arts and how humor can not only harness community, but harness change. Amiga, neighbor, compañera, Jenny, welcome to the show.
Pew, 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 pew. What an intro, man. I felt that.
Yo, and
Ooh,
your bangs look amazing today.
thank
Hey,
you.
amazing. Are you in between tour right now? Are you on tour? What's going on?
Yeah, in between touring, I am did my first chunk of my Good Egg Immigrant Grocery Store stand-up comedy tour, raising funds for local immigrant rights organizations.
So, dude, I ain't got to tell you, Jenny, these are wild times. And they're getting wilder. They're getting wild. I feel like Love Island and reality are like they're like competing for what is crazier right
Right.
now. Um, and so I've been following you. I've been seeing you use your platform, your comedy to uplift the resilience, the resistance to ICE raids. And then I heard about this tour. I heard you're doing this national tour in grocery stores.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody do that before.
Mm.
And I'm like amazed. I'm fascinated. I'm like dumbfounded. Can you please share a little bit about this national tour? And was it a response to the raids? Like, where did you come up with this?
Man, if I were to be fully honest, the full story of how I decided I wanted to like tell jokes in front of a wall of bok choy, that doesn't just come to you. First of all, as an immigrant, food is such an integral part to our culture and for us to stay connected, right? To our people. Even if, say, your parents didn't teach you the native tongue, if you never got to visit the mother country, you still have the food, right? And so that's just a theme of life, just for me. But I think as we've all been consistently heartbroken, right, during the ramp up of this phase of the immigration system, the immigration administration, um, I think I felt very frustrated that I wasn't able to help directly. Maybe
Mm.
I might have done a Home Depot patrol, maybe whatever. But, I think if I'm always trying to remember my organizing days back when I was a community and political organizer and, when I worked for a CIU labor union,
Mm.
I'm just trying to remember how can I contribute from where I stand? We can all contribute from where we are,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't mean that we have to turn into these other things or other people, but we come with our own gifts and assets. And so now that I'm a stand-up comedian, and I know how to produce my own tour and comedy shows, and I have this beautiful network of people that I'm connected to from my previous life. I have all these old friends, old as in lowercase o. Listen, we don't know how old I am. I'm still trying to be an actor in Hollywood, Asian roles, ages 15 to 55.
Yo, you
And
look
so,
good too.
and so, I have all these old friends who continue to do the work. And even if I haven't seen them in forever, they know me. We have a trust, and I'm able to call upon them. So, literally, when I said to myself, this is what happened. I was finishing my 10th failed IVF in Taiwan because it's cheaper there. And I
Mm.
know 10 is a lot. You get a free
Mm.
boba on the 10th failed IVF. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
You get a free boba. Anyway, so I did it. It's
You're so dumb.
it's cheaper. These are some previews of jokes I'm doing on this on the road. But I was in Taiwan because it is cheaper. That's where I'm from to do in vitro fertilization.
Mm.
And I told myself, this is too many times. My body's been through it. I've been depressed. What's funny is if you know anyone who's done fertility, sometimes the hormones that you shoot up into yourself to create life are the very things that'll make you want to end your own life
Oh,
because it's so intense. I was in such an anxious and depressive state the last 5 years because of the hormones, because of life,
mm,
personal life, loss, grief, the world, right?
yeah,
And in right before that 10th IVF cycle, when I was in Taiwan, I told myself, this is my last one. And then when it finally failed, I cried for 2 days, got myself up, went to my favorite Taiwanese breakfast, which is an egg omelet.
mm,
Dumping. It's a very special Taiwanese breakfast. I was like, okay, yeah, I just needed one good egg. I'm
yeah,
looking at this egg omelet. And then I go to my favorite coffee shop, open up my journal. It's a blank page for 2026. And it all flooded in the absence of being pregnant. I said, what can I do with this intense experience that I've gone through, this 5 year phase of my life, this 5 year phase of pandemic, of this awful administration? How do
yeah,
I channel that into something that can also, in practice, contribute? So it's not only me working on my stand up, right? As I tour, I get to have stage time. But how do I use the touring process as a way to raise funds, raise up stories through my platform, whatever little corner of the internet I have.
yeah,
And so that's how I was able to immediately, I mapped out this thing, good egg. And I was like, good egg, because I'm talking about growing up a good immigrant kid, the importance of food to our cultures and my obsession with egg yolks, and my fertility journey. So that's why
yeah.
it's the Good Egg Immigrant Grocery Store stand-up comedy tour. And then I said to myself, what would get me out of my nice air-conditioned house in LA in the summer? And I said, you know what? I would let me go to the nice air conditioning of a grocery store. And wouldn't it be fun to just make an uncle and auntie maybe half understand the jokes I'm telling, who run the grocery store, but who are down for the cause, who want to support community? We're not, I'm not breaking the bank, but I want to raise a little chunk of change,
Yeah.
right? And boost morale and bring people together and just have a way for me to also connect with people locally. Like, it's that's I've only done 4 shows of the tour, and it's already giving me so much life,
Yeah. It's so
It's
crazy. I always feel like on a hot ass day, like the like two places where you could go. It's like you can go to the mall, right?
Yes.
Or you could go to like your like grocery store and just sit with the broccoli, with the spritzers, and just chill there for like 10 minutes and be like, all right, I'm ready. If the Good Egg Tour does everything you want it to do, what comes from it? What is created? What happens?
Oh, man. I'm telling jokes inside of grocery stores, and I raise money for local organizations. What's gonna come from this? Number 1, I hope people are inspired to think creatively about how they can contribute back to their communities so they don't feel hopeless. I think number 2, I hope that there's going to be rich people who see the list of organizations that I'm supporting and want to across the board give them huge donations so that they will become resource, because oftentimes the more grassroots the organization is, the more under resourced they are,
Mm,
right? And so and a lot of these organizations are either very new or have been around and just still don't have enough resources. The other thing that I hope would come out of the Good Egg Immigrant Grocery Store stand-up comedy tour is that in September I have a great comedy special that I'm going to tape for the first time, my first 1 hour comedy special. That's the goal, is that, at the end of the tour, I'll have something that will share about what it's like to grow up as a quote unquote good immigrant kid, and about sort of what it means to fail in my fertility. But also, that's just a general question around, even if you don't have kids, what does it mean to thrive in a family or in a community now, given that so many things that we thought were a part of the American dream has become a nightmare, right? And so that to me is something I want the world to think about. I want Americans to think about. Hopefully people will watch my special. I don't know how it's going to be distributed, but that's what's going to happen. And I would love universal health care. I would love ranked choice voting. I would love to overturn this administration and create create well, change the electoral college system. What else do you want? I would love.
Compañera, I feel like you need a TV show. I feel like The Good Egg is the best pitch. I feel like someone needs to follow you, like the way like Conan O'Brien is traveling. Like this idea,
Yeah.
it almost feels like I can't believe nobody's done it before. But it
Mm,
also goes to be like, yeah, when you see something not happening, you go do it yourself.
yeah,
And I feel like you did that.
I
And
did.
you did it out of pain, like
Mm.
this story, and you're making I love you, Jenny. I love that
Oh,
you're doing that. And we kind of come from this same cloth. I am I was an organizer for 10 years
yeah,
and then made a transition to life as an artist, a musician. You were an organizer
yeah.
and made this sort of transition to a comedian,
Mm.
writer, and actress. Like, tell me how you made that leap from like organizer to comedian.
Oh, I mean, the quick version is at some point you only live once, and unless you believe in reincarnation, but you only live once in this body.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was just like, man, I've always been creative. I've always been a performer because I actually used to do poetry around town. I don't know if we knew each other back then, but I used to perform poetry, as self-help graphics with Felicia Montes and
Hey,
like
yeah.
and or whatever, like, and I was a regular performing poet, and I wouldn't memorize what I did because I never took it seriously because that was my attitude toward my own creativity at the time. It was just a side thing that I did to express myself, right? It wasn't like something I would take seriously. Like literally, I'd be introduced as a writer and poet. I'll be like, no, 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 no. I
Mm,
write
yeah.
things and then I'll say it. But that's when I didn't really accept that identity. And so, after the 25th time of someone hearing me perform, being like, you're so funny, or you make me laugh and cry,
Yeah.
I finally listened to them because frankly, I was getting burnt out at the labor union. What are you going to do?
What are you gonna do?
As we know, some of our movements are not perfect.
Yeah. I've had the same I have the same story. I felt a little burned out and I loved music. I love poetry, and those are things that gave me life.
Yes.
And then I was like 29. I said, I'm not married. I don't have kids. I don't own a house. I'd have no attachments.
Right.
Like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it now. And I can
Exactly.
always kind of come back to this life. And I
Yeah.
made that leap.
Yeah.
Was that similar?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, it's like what do you have to lose? For me, I think as a Taiwanese immigrant, I did all the things that my parents probably wanted me to do so that they could justify that their immigration story was worth it. I
Yeah.
gave them straight A's, 4.5 GPA. I got free rides and scholarships and fellowships to undergrad and grad school. I was getting paid well in my first career, and but I wasn't happy, right? I didn't feel like it was truly giving me the meaning that I had. It wasn't where I needed to be, and that because there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with some of our social movements, including the labor movement, in terms of what it means to nurture leaders, in a sort of ethical and righteous way. And so I was just like, this isn't the space for me anymore. And if I don't do it now, when would I do it? I need it. I know I'm creative. I've accepted this identity. I had to go through this sort of like clarifying moment where I'm just like, I'm an artist. I'm a creative. I I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And after that, everything fell into place in terms of just being open to opportunities, being open to using my type A personality to pursue a creative profession. And so I've been fortunate to be able to use the leadership skills I had from organizing and my communication skills to be able to, essentially organize an audience,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's really what it is. They call it, business people call it marketing, right?
Yeah.
But we call it organizing. So,
Yeah. It's so funny. I feel like at my shows, like every show is a protest.
yeah.
And I used to organize marches and protests and chants. and used to use messaging to get people to rally around a common cause.
That's
I
right.
feel like now I do shows, but now I do it with like 808 beats, you know, I'm like,
Hey,
and like,
listen, we need
and
the
then like,
cheerleaders. We need the cheerleaders of the
that's what it is.
movement.
I felt
Yeah.
like that was my gift. I feel like you tapped into your gifts,
Yeah.
and like comedy, poetry, writing. I feel like I tapped into mine, and I feel like now I'm full circle, feeling using sort of those gifts in service of the movement, right? Like you're doing
Yeah.
it, your comedy in service of the movement,
Yeah.
and I
And
love it.
I love that too. And I feel like, I appreciate you saying that, Good Egg should be a TV show. It should get more eyes and all that. Because I agree. I agree. The fact that you get to do and host this podcast, that makes sense. You should have more opportunities
Yeah,
to be able to tell your story and to help platform other people's stories, which is what you're so good at, right? And bringing people together. And so, I think we have so much to go even on this side of the politics to be like, how do we resource the artists to make sure that they can actually have a greater impact?
yeah.
My goal is not to be viral. Like my goal is not to be a viral content creator. But as a byproduct of some of my work, it might happen.
Yeah.
And that's just a tool. But I see my work as in real life and online. I see it as independently produced, and sometimes I get these Hollywood jobs. So I'm still figuring it out, but I just really feel like this process of putting together essentially an independent stand-up comedy tour, right? That is technically a nonprofit comedy tour because it is fiscally sponsored by the Asian Law Caucus, who have been doing amazing work on the federal level as lawyers, civil rights lawyers, but also for the Bay Area and for California. They saw and believed in this idea. I have a long-standing relationship with them. I hosted their gala twice. I've hosted the NILC gala once, and they know who I am, and they trusted me. And I pitched them this idea, and they said yes. Let's be your fiscal sponsor, so you can accept donations for your end of the expenses, so that I can just show up, and maybe we got to spend like $100 for a spotlight locally, but that's what I envision to be like. We're gonna make you a chunk of change. It's not gonna be any real cost on you as the local organization or the grocery store, and let's just have fun with it.
You know
um
what's crazy? I feel like everything. I feel like, we'll have another conversation, but I feel like you're giving a master class on how to actually like create art. And if you're connected to community, this is another way that you can actually like uplift community, serve community, but also practice your art as a musician, comedian.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like,
this is my way of doing that. And I forgot to mention from earlier, this is only possible because I have a network of old friends who are still doing the work. And so I just hit them up. I'm just like, hey, my old friend who I used to work at this nonprofit at in Little Tokyo, Arlene, are you in Daly City? Are you down to like be my local person to connect me with an org and a grocery store? She's like, yes. My husband Rod is the city councilman here in Daly City. Another coworker of mine, a Sudari, who's Lao, she's in Dallas. She replied to my email on my email list to be like, that's great. You should come to Dallas. I said, you want to help me produce it locally? She's like, okay.
done,
And then she
done.
was like, I was like, what's a good org you think that would be good for that? What's a good market? And I follow her lead. I'm like, I don't know, Dallas. And she was like, well, I happen to be on the board of Asian Texans for Justice. I'm like, okay, let's raise the money for Asian Texans for Justice. And then, who's a good grocery store to approach who might be down, who's not like pro ICE, because that still happens.
Mm,
Immigrant grocery store owners. There's a lot of things that I've learned about our
I know.
communities through this process. And she knows the lay of the land, and I just follow her lead. To me, that's what I've learned about community organizing is you want to be able to follow the lead of those who are already doing the work and who the community already trusts. You
Boom.
know, if you're saying that other organization is whack, I don't want to work with them. Thank you for telling me that.
Like that. You gave me that intel. You gave me that. Yeah,
Exactly.
like the landscape. Yeah. So,
Exactly.
so I want to. I'm the oldest of 6 kids,
Oh, wow.
raised by a single mama.
Oh,
When my parents got divorced when I was like 10.
yeah.
I've heard you share that you're the youngest.
Yes.
You're the youngest, and I've also heard you share also about growing up and what that meant as sort of a child of immigrant parents, translating for your parents,
Yeah.
doing documents for your parents. Now you're doing this national tour. Can you share how that experience has shaped you and your comedy, and now as you go share across the country, your
Yeah.
stories?
Yeah, I talk a lot about my parents. I'm actually an immigrant. I was born in Taiwan and I came to this country when I was 5 years old. So I'm not only the daughter of immigrants, but I'm also an
Yeah.
immigrant. But it's a very different experience because I have two much older brothers. They were 10 and 9 years older than me. So
Mm.
in my family, my mom was a garment worker and my father, he knew enough English by the books to be able to get this job in China Airlines in LAX to move our family here. But like he was not fluent at all. And so my ass was what, 6 years old? Between age 5 and 6, I learned English the fastest. And so by age 7, I'm translating. Okay. I'm at the doctor's office being like, yeah, mom, the doctor wants to know when you and dad last had sex. Like, who does that? You're not supposed to do that when you're 7. That's embarrassing. But
Yeah.
I feel like so many immigrant kids relate to growing up too quickly, having having way more responsibility than you probably should have at that age. I like to tell I love my parents and I have so much compassion for them because, they've seen some stuff. So,
Yeah.
a lot of our parents have seen some
I
stuff.
know.
And that's why the way they are. And but like I like to describe my parents' immigrant parenting style as like frazzled CEO. You know? It's like, how can you be mean, a micromanager, and neglectful all at the same time? Like,
All at the same time,
how can you do that? And be my
gracefully.
parents and be my parents. So, we can laugh about it now, obviously.
I know.
But, at the time it wasn't pleasant, but we cope. Your children, we're like, resilient. Um, but and I like to think of it this way. When you're the eldest son or the eldest daughter, I feel like a lot of times you have to have more responsibility. And then if you're an immigrant kid, you often have to have more responsibility. And for me, early on, I knew I could not rely on my family to give me guidance about how to navigate America
Mm.
very early on. And
Yeah.
so I did my best to learn, do well at school, be curious, and that kind of coping mechanism, right? Of like not having as much shame going and asking adults about things, that was a coping mechanism. It's a survival skill, but that's obviously what I was able to grow up and be strong in. Those are marketable coping mechanisms, being able to handle the world, right? Being able to investigate and know what's up and down and fill out my own financial aid forms and do my own research on how to go to college. I was the first one in my little family to go to like 4-year university. And so, navigating America, bureaucracy, paperwork, that's just what you learn when you're a kid of immigrants because you know the language. But when you grow older, though, I feel like a lot of um, especially after your 20s, you realize the limitations of your personality as it was formed as a coping mechanism. So the way that you cope may not be good for your personal life, for example. So, I'm a go-getter. I don't trust nobody. I'm very independent because I'm like, I can't trust anybody. I got to handle everything by myself. When you grow up that way, you just have that inside you. You're like, you have this anxiety, like, well,
Yeah.
if I don't do it, ain't gonna get done,
Yeah.
So, but that's terrible for building relationships, right? That's terrible for friendships or a mutually beneficial, uh, uh, you know, uh, any kind of personal relationship.
Have you ever had a therapist?
Oh, of course, heavy therapy, and I had to realize that, like, so much of our political movements, so much of our work environments, this is our public persona, suffers from us as people not fulfilling our personal needs in our personal life. So
Mm.
sometimes people try to get their personal needs fulfilled in the public life,
Mm.
affirmation, validation, um, being seen, all of that. And that's fair. That's just who we are as humans. But one of the things I learned early on as someone who's extroverted, who, right, like, is comfortable talking in public, that like that can't be everything. Like just because you're a performer, just because you're good at talking to people, just because you know how to connect with others, doesn't mean that that's a replacement for your inner world or your inner sanctum of homies or found family.
So true. So
Right? Don't you
true.
feel like that's like something you learn when you grow up? Like you know, someone like you or me who are extroverted, it's easy for us to make friends, right? And I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but when you become more, like mature, you realize, well, that's not everything. Just because you know you have like people you can call to go have drinks and party with, doesn't mean like you'll be fulfilled in your soul, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, I don't know. I think part of me deciding to do art and be a comedian and do be a TV writer is my way of justifying processing my internal world and my inner world for work. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a powerful you know, it's a powerful position to have, to be able to call yourself an artist and to be able to transmute what you feel in a very intimate level
Yeah.
into something that people can connect with and that they can rock with, right? So that process is magical, like to transform pain. Otherwise, it's just therapy. Otherwise, it's just me going, Hector, I really had a bad morning, and this is my mom said some weird stuff about my face, you know, whatever.
Because then I feel like, because part of being an artist, right, in any capacity, at least in my from my perspective, is that your ability to be vulnerable and to be in touch with oneself.
Yes.
And you can't really do that if you've never really sort of healed and got, been able to. You can't really go to those places,
Yeah.
right? Those personal places, if you haven't healed from them, because then they become anger, they become rage, they become a lot of
Yes.
other things that become toxic,
A
right?
100%.
And
I
so, like,
agree.
as a writer, as someone who shares a lot, being in touch with those things and being
Yeah.
able to talk about them is is the way you're really going to connect with others. As an organizer, I would have to be like, yo, I'm from this neighborhood, I've experienced these things,
Yeah.
I want to see change. You live here,
Right.
I'd love to build with you, right? And like, as an
Right.
organizer, you share your own experiences with injustice
Right.
and invite people to do that.
Yeah.
If you're not in touch with those things or haven't healed from them, then you come off really angry and you come off
Yeah.
really sort of like with a lot of hate,
Mm.
and animosity, which is actually not where we want to go. Like, rage can get you to the water, but
Yeah.
actually freedom is on the other side,
Oh, oh,
And so,
I like
like,
that.
and and how do we get there? Introspection,
Yeah.
forgiveness,
Yeah.
redemption, and love.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I feel like in comedy, art, music, poetry, it's like those things speak to us, and the most, and it speaks to us the best when people actually are the most vulnerable, right,
Yeah.
and in touch. So,
But also,
thank you for sharing that.
oh, thanks. Yeah. But also, like in that example where my mom's like, "What's wrong with your face?" You know, I could complain about it. And, you know, she's like, I remember this one time I was finally wearing some makeup in front of her because she just didn't like having me wear makeup. You know, like out in the public American world, I'll like dress or wear makeup a certain way so that, but then when I'm with my mom, I won't. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want to be criticized. A lot of young women have this experience with their
Yeah.
immigrant parents. And I remember one time I finally put on like makeup in front of my mom for one of the first times. I was in my 20s. I walk by, she doesn't miss a beat. She stops me. She's like, "What's that on your face?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, what's wrong with your face? Is there dirt on your face?" And it was straight up contour. It was like contour and it looked like dirt to her. She's like, "Why is your face dirty?" I was like, "Mom, see, but what we could do instead of me just complaining about it is we could make that into a song.
I know. Make
Mom
it
said,
into art.
make add a rhythm to it, like mom said, "What's wrong with my face?" You know, I don't know.
It's so funny. My homegirl who's in my band with me, she told me she would take extra clothes in a backpack. So
Yeah,
she would walk out her house for high school
classic.
and then like go to the restroom as soon as she got to school and would change, right?
That's right.
She couldn't do that.
No,
You know what I mean?
no.
Wild. Oh my goodness, we could talk all day about that stuff. But I want to get back to I want to get back to your type A personality
Yeah,
and what you've been able to build with your organizing skills. You've been able, like, once you transition to comedy, I
yeah,
know that you've also built, um, you've done the comedy festival, you've done
yeah,
Comedy Crossing, you've done Disoriented Comedy, you've
yeah,
done this Good Egg tour.
yeah,
And I feel like in a moment right now where immigrant communities are being targeted,
yeah.
showing up can feel complicated. And so in all this work that you're doing, right? Especially on this national tour, what does allyship mean to you now versus before?
Oh man. You know, it's weird because so many different people are under attack right now.
Hmm.
So a lot of us are both the victims of what's happening as well as the allies to others. You know what I'm saying? And I think it can feel overwhelming. I think that's what's the problem. So for me, I just always had to go back to like, okay, I feel hopeless and I don't want to feel overwhelmed. How can I start where I am? How can I start where I am? And so I'm not saying other people need to be organizing a stand-up comedy tour inside of immigrant grocery stores, but I always talk to people to be like, what, and my therapist is great at explain like reminding me of this too. It's like we got to tend to our own garden, right? So and that feels freeing, It's like you can't save the world, but you can do one little step every day, you know, in your garden.
Yeah.
You could water it, you could plant seeds, whatever sphere of control you have. And so, yeah, I think I've been blessed to have a certain set of skills that's not just around creativity, but around um, gathering people or putting events together. And so I've used that skill most of my life, whether it's me transitioning from being a political worker to a stand-up comedian. The things that you listed, like the comedy festival, a comedy festival, the disoriented comedy tour, those are two things I created when I first became a comedian because I knew Hollywood wasn't going to roll out the red carpet for me. And so let me just independently produce my own tour. I can get stage time. I can connect with my own audiences. The Comedy Festival is an Asian American comedy festival in LA, 220 people, um, 22 shows. Like it was fantastic. And people to this day, there are groups that form from that festival. There are people who've gotten representation from that festival who are sketch writers and comedy writers and artists and performers. My disoriented comedy show tour was me, D'Lo. A lot of you might know D'Lo.
From the Bay? Yeah,
Yeah,
D-Lo from the Bay.
D'Lo's from LA. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Not
but
not D'Lo from the Bay. D'Lo, as in the Tamil Sri Lankan D'Lo, who for a long time was a theater goer. I think the D'Lo from the Bay you're talking about is a rapper.
no, 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 no. Doesn't D-Lo lives in the Bay though
Nope,
now? Has always been LA?
that's right.
Oh my goodness.
We
Oh,
need
I
to
always thought D-Lo was Bay.
No. Everyone look up D'Lo if you don't know. D'Lo is from Sri Lancaster.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and Atsuko Okatsuka, who is a very successful stand-up comedian now, and Yola Lu, who is from Seattle. And so I don't know, like that's just what I could do. Like if you can control your own destiny, why wouldn't you? Now,
Mm,
if there
wow.
was if there was an infrastructure for artists like me to get paid, to have support so that I don't have to be the one to organize my own tour. Oh, that would be so sweet, you know? To have if someone's listening who just has like a bunch of money and you want to support like what I'm into, if you get down with me,
Please,
who
please.
wants to do good things with integrity and with passion and humor, let's talk.
Hey, let's
Okay?
go.
Let's
Let's go.
talk.
But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, Jenny. I feel like us, we've had to do more with less.
Yeah.
We've had to I've always said like you have to create something from nothing before anybody gives you anything.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
You have
true.
to show that grit that we can be creative without money, sponsors, funding. We were able to create things.
Yes.
And so if we were able to have that kind of support, imagine how much more impact we would do. And I feel like
That's what I'm
that's what
saying.
we're trying to do.
That's
You
what I'm
know what I mean?
saying.
That's what we're trying to do out here. And gosh, I feel like I had a whole question around like Asian representation and how you feel, what you've seen the gaps. And
Yeah.
I feel like you've then gone out and actually created your own productions, your
Yeah.
own shows, your own collaborations. I
Yeah.
feel like in this whole experience, especially now that you've gotten into the entertainment industry
Mm.
and writing and now acting, what have you noticed about how real change happens behind closed doors?
Oh, that the entertainment industry is even more corporate than ever. It's suffered from the same consolidation that other aspects of media have experienced. And corporations and the culture, corporate culture, is still very, very, very racist and very,
Mm,
very focused on enriching the rich. And so, you know, as much as I am down and happy to talk to anyone about, oh yeah, we need better Asian American representation, blah blah blah. But I'll be the first to say that that's not everything. And I think what really disappoints me is that, you know, when everyone was posting their, you know, black squares in 2020
mhm.
saying, yeah, Black lives do matter, you know, and the entertainment industry had a little bit of a reckoning around, you know, Me Too, Time's Up, all of that. How quickly we went backwards the moment it felt like the money is no longer there, that it felt like, you know, the winds have shifted,
Mm,
tells me that we cannot rely on anyone else but ourselves.
yeah. It kind of takes us back to ground zero
It does. It
in,
really
building
does.
our own infrastructure and our own spacing.
Yes.
And even like even this podcast is with NILC,
Yeah.
right? We could wait for someone else to do a great immigration podcast and
No.
uplift immigrant narratives, or NILC was like, actually, we got to do it ourselves and let's bring people
Yes.
together. Like who's doing work on the ground and let's build something versus waiting for somebody else, another immigrant, sort
Yeah.
of like narrative to America. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's not.
No. I would
You
love,
know?
I mean, I'm essentially doing my version of this through Asian Law Caucus, right?
Yeah.
Having a
Correct.
partnership with someone who gets narrative change and who gets, you know, why artists and storytellers need to be at the forefront as well, you know, of sharing the stories and getting the messages out. And so I love that y'all are doing this.
I love that they called me. You know what I'm saying? I have a joke like NILC wanted like a Grammy Award winning artist, and they were busy, so then they called me. You know what
We need to come, speaking of our own infrastructure, we need to come up with our own awards, honestly.
I
We
mean?
should. This might be the day where I create my own awards.
That's right. And we like give it out. We give our awards out to people. We give awards to ourselves. You know what I
Yes,
mean?
to
We
creative
give red
folks.
cards to
Yeah.
people who are like
Yes.
violating things every
Movement
day. Like
folks.
I feel
Movement folks
that's what I'm
doing the good
learning.
work, you
Oh
know, who are
my
thinking
goodness.
creatively about the work. Like I love that. We need to
Yeah.
we need to reward people for the vision of the world that we want to go toward.
Correct.
You
I love it.
know.
I feel like instead of waiting for the Grammys to like honor me and my friends and everybody, I should be creating awards and be like, yo, I think your album is the shit.
Yes,
I think the work you're
the
doing
Las
is incredible.
Cafeteras Awards.
You know what I'm saying? Oh, hey, mark
I'm
my
just
word.
saying,
I love it.
we're figuring
I
something out
love it.
here. We're
I love
cooking.
it.
We are cooking.
We're cooking.
Yeah.
We cooking.
We
We cooking.
we are.
All right, compañera. Last thing,
Yeah.
where can people find you, follow you if they don't know you? What is next? And
Yeah.
where can the good people see Jenny Yang?
JennyYang.tv, JennyYang.tv is everything you need to know. I personally redesigned my website just so that we can make sure you know about my Good Egg Immigrant Grocery Store stand-up comedy tour. Okay, so that's
Hell
where you
yeah.
can sign up for my email list at jennyyang.substack.com, which is also my weekly podcast and link sharing platform. It's What Should We Talk About with Jenny Yang? It's the Good Egg takeover of the podcast every week because this summer I am touring. So when you sign up, you're going to get first dibs on the tour tickets because they will sell out fast. They're all going to sell out. And because I am interviewing folks on the ground that I'm meeting, so you can understand what they're going through too. Like in New Orleans, I met this amazing owner of a Vietnamese deli and mini mart in New Orleans, Uncle Bo. I mean, Uncle Bo is legendary. All right. This man runs 2.5 miles every day, has a nephew who got deported back to Vietnam after having living here for 40 years and leaves two kids behind and a wife. And we get into it. Like, this is exactly why I'm doing this tour. So I can meet those people and I could share their stories too through my little platform.
I
So
love
go to jennyyang.tv, follow me at TikTok and Instagram at JennyYangTV. And
Hell
that's
yeah.
it.
And that's it, yo. Oh, amiga, I am so happy we've been able to have this conversation, bring you on board. I
Aw,
love what you're doing. I got so much love for you, Jenny.
same. Are you
You know what I
kidding
mean?
me?
I feel like we're organizer artists, and like I see what you're doing. I'm inspired to keep on going. I'm inspired to think bigger. You know what I mean?
Let's
And
think
coming out of here,
bigger.
yo, let's be bigger. And like, I feel we need to give awards to our communities, and stop waiting for corporate America
Yes, we're
to,
going to do
to
that.
validate us and be like, no, we're doing amazing work. So my award to the best national comedy tour goes to Jenny Yang, everybody. Goes to Jenny Yang.
Wow,
You
me?
know what I'm
Oh my
saying? The
God.
good egg.
Oh my
The
God.
good egg
I'm
tour.
receiving the gift from you right now. The here's the trophy. Oh my God,
I love
thank
what you're doing.
you.
Oh my goodness. Amiga, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. And
Yes.
everybody go get tickets. And if you're not in a city where she's on tour, let your homies know.
Yes.
That's how we support one another. You
Yes.
ain't gotta be in that city, but you know somebody out there. Let your friends know. Because what Jenny's doing out there is amazing. She's funny as hell. And you'll
Aw,
follow her on all things.
thank you.
Thank you
And
so much,
you
amiga.
can also donate to the organizations, even if you can't go. It's
Thank
all
you.
on jennyyang.tv.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hey, salud, girl. Salud.
Salud.
Hell yeah. Familia, neighbors. Oh my goodness. That was the incredible comedian, actress, writer, Jenny Yang. Thank you so much, compañera. And now we get to meet NILC's senior strategy organizer, Eliana Fernandez. Compañera, welcome to the show.
Hello, Hector. Good to see you again. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Eliana, can you share with people what is your role at NILC?
Sure. My name is Eliana Fernandez. I go by Eli. I'm a senior organizer with NILC. Basically, a big part of my role is to be able to connect with partner organizations, understand, what are some of the work that they're doing in the ground, understand their struggles, support their solutions, be able to provide resources when we can, but most importantly, build bridges and relationships for long-lasting, work that we do in collaboration with them. And that's something that gets me, really excited to be able to work and engage with organizers in the ground and understand what's happening in many communities across the country.
Orale. Well, look, we think it's so important to get to know people on the front lines doing the hard work, right? So we just had this great conversation with Jenny around her immigrant grocery tour. And so I have some 3 questions for you. So it's going to be like a rapid fire. You ready?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Question number 1. What are you willing to stand in line for at the grocery store when it's really packed?
Berries and Greek yogurt. I could just stand online for as long as I have to, just so I can get that.
Orale. All right. Question number 2. How do you like your eggs?
How do I like my eggs? Oh God. I think I like them boiled. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So
I'm a
that's
scrambled man myself.
okay. I
All
like
right,
the
last
scrambled too.
question.
There's my eggs on the yeah.
When you're walking in a grocery store, what song are you not mad at when it's being played inside the store?
Bad Bunny songs, of course. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if those songs are playing. I'm like, that's the energy. Let's do it. I'll be like dancing in the aisles.
Hey, great answer, girl. Great answer. All right. Um, we just had this amazing conversation with Jenny. She shared so much from her identity, her family, her artistic practice. What was a big takeaway you had from the conversation with Jenny?
I think it was such a beautiful conversation. There were a lot of things that I feel like is there to unpack. I think at one moment I heard tear in my ears, just hearing, her story, but also most important, the work that she's doing as a comedian, being able to go to the grocery stores and connect with people. What a wonderful and powerful way to connect with our community, with our gente, mama, papa, tios go there and just building community. And she mentioned something that is real in the organizing world, as an organizer too. Food has a very unique way to connect people. And I feel like, whenever there's food, there's energy, there's love, there's family, there's, everything. And so, her doing this, tour, going to the stores, sharing her own story, as an immigrant, as an organizer, as a comedian, I feel like is really important. And at the same time, she's also uplifting the stories of those that she's meeting along the way. What a beautiful way to uplift our community voices, through the way that she's doing it. And I think something that also really caught my attention is finding that pivotal moment as an organizer. I think it happens in all of our lives. I remember that happened to me in 2017. And I think she mentioned, but in a different way, how do we turn pain into action? And I think all of us have gone through that. And, just hearing her, like, it took me back to 2017 when President Trump was ending DACA. And I was like petrified. And this opportunity came out about to become a plaintiff. And I took that opportunity, but I was like really scared. But I think that was like my pivotal moment as an organizer to take that pain and fear into action and be able to do something else for our community. And I feel like she's doing
Yes.
just that, right? Like being able to connect with other folks, and also like talking about her infertility journey as she does, the comedy. And I feel like sometimes immigrants, we're not the best when it comes to like, talking about grief. And we experience
Mm,
grief in many different ways. And that's also like, an act of resilience to be able to combat the grief
Mm.
that we feel. And something that came to
yeah.
mind at this moment is like, sometimes grief doesn't mean when you lose a loved one, but also like when you lose a job. And I'm thinking about all the DACA recipients that because of the DACA delays
Mm,
have been laid off, have lost their jobs. And that's a
yes.
grief that is really hard to like manage and deal with. And she also talked about mental health and how important that is for our communities. And at the same time, it's something that we don't often talk about, or we don't look for the help that we need. And
Mm,
so I feel like for me, there were like so many things I was feeling like, very emotional. And the privilege also to be a mom, and she was sharing her story. And I'm like, oh my God, what a privilege to be the mom of my kids, and that keeps me ground me in the work that I do, because in my life I'm doing everything for my kids, right? And trying to
yeah.
provide a better world for them, and like doing this work and committed to this work because we know that every kid deserves like, to live in a safe place and an environment where they can just live free and thrive. And so I feel like all the ways that we were able to connect, her as an organizer, herself, like you as an organizer. And so the importance also filling your cup. She said something about like the garden, but I always think about like how are you filling your cup in order to be able to do
Yeah.
this work. And I feel like that's so important for organizers in this moment, especially under this administration. How can we take care of each other? We've seen
Yes.
a lot of harm being inflicted in our communities. What are we doing to protect ourselves? And I think, like, as she was also sharing this story, she was giving us a lot of solutions, because I feel like
Mm,
comedy is like one
yes.
of the greatest remedies, right? To like everything that we're experiencing at this moment. So I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm all for it, right? Like the way that she is able to connect with people, and like, her energy, and like, she's sharing her struggles, and at the same time she's giving you like, solutions on what to do and how to take care of yourself. I thought just
Yes.
she was just amazing, incredible, and it really touched me in many different ways.
Oh my goodness. Ay, compañera, thank you for sharing. That is an amazing reflection. Thank you for hitting all those points. I feel like when I think about Jenny, she's taking her comedy and organizing to like non-conventional spaces, grocery stores, immigrant-run grocery stores, right? Using her comedy to raise funds, support communities. And so right now, what do you think is the role that allies should be playing in or can be playing in supporting immigrants?
I think like, there's three things that our allies can be doing at this moment. One is like learn and share accurate information. We have seen a lot of
Good.
misinformation being shared in social medias. I feel like one is like understanding how immigration policies work, and at the same time being able to understand the realities the immigrant communities face. I feel like once you're able to meet someone, as Jenny is doing, like meeting people in the grocery stores, like, talking to
Yeah.
them, that changes your mind, right? Like once you're able to meet and connect with people. And I feel like, educating themselves, that will be like, one of my suggestions, and learning and connecting with people in the community.
So
Second is like we have
yeah.
seen our communities under attack day in and day out. So how can you as an ally know your rights and also help others understand and know their rights? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of local organizations that are providing know your rights trainings. How can you go there and get involved so you can also share that information with other members of your community? Um, and that end, at our NILC website, we have a range, a variety of resources regarding know your rights materials. that you can access. Some of them you can download, share with your friends, with your family members. And lastly, I will say like supporting a lot of the mutual aid efforts that are happening across the country. As Jenny also mentioned, like, consider donating money. There's like, food, transportation, childcare, other resources that you can help family immigrants donate to grassroots organizations that are responding and meeting the urgent needs in our community. I feel like those are like, three things that I can think on top of my mind that our allies can do in this moment to support the immigrant community.
Boom. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, compañera. Right now, for folks listening, if there's listening right now and someone wants to support the work of NILC, how can they do that? Where would you send them to?
I will send them to our website because not only do we have great resources there, but we also have ways that you can take action at this moment. We continue to produce like different materials on a monthly basis. There's ways that you can engage, participate, and be on the know, right? Like with all the news. Follow us on social media too. I think you can get a lot of great information from there as well.
Órale, compañera Eliana, thank you so much. I know you're traveling. I know you're doing work on the front lines, and I just want to say I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the work you do. And like the only way we're gonna get through this is together, And I appreciate you. Also, like the tips you shared, I feel it's amazing. Giving accurate and correct information. Like we don't talk about that enough. You know what I'm saying? Not all information is good information in this time. So I just want to thank you so much, Eliana. Gracias for your good work and note. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. If this episode moved you, share it with someone. That's how this work travels. I'm Hector Flores. Much love to Jenny Yang and NILC's Eliana Fernandez. And thank you for being here. Thanks for listening to this episode of NILC's Freedom to Thrive podcast. To learn more about the work NILC is doing, visit nilc.org. And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. Thank you so much.